When I first bought my home, I was very excited. In fact, I was over the moon and it was such a great feeling. As the days and weeks went by, I got scared because I now acquired this huge loan and I was scared that if something bad happened to me, God forbid, I'm gonna knock on wood on that, I would leave my family with a lot of debt and a liability. Luckily, I reached out to, her name is Gutierrez. She is the CEO of the Primerica branch here in Pasco Tri-Cities, along with her husband. And I want people to listen to our conversation, especially those who just closed on a home, because you don't know what's coming up next. And just like a car and your life, you need to protect your home and make sure that it's protected. So I hope you listen to this episode and learn something. I hope it encourages you to reach out, either them or a professional that you trust, to help you get started and protect your biggest asset.
Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ricardo. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Before we dive into this topic, can you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Gutierrez, and I am actually a retired high school teacher. I used to teach financial literacy at Pasco High School, and through the work that I used to do with my students, we realized there was such a great need for financial literacy out in the community. So my husband and I actually started our business in financial services. We do everything from investments, mortgage loans, insurance of all different sorts. My main focus is really life insurance and education out into the community, a lot of outreach. I'm the marketing person and the outreach person. So definitely enjoy what I do, and I love everything that's happening within our business right now.
But when you talk about life insurance, how would you describe life insurance for someone who doesn't really know what it is?
Yeah, so life insurance should really be a way to establish an immediate estate for your family, especially in the event of somebody passing away, right? It should be something where it provides that income replacement, not just for the reason of if somebody passes away for funeral expenses, right? It should be for everything else that happens after a person passes away. And I think a lot of people don't think about that side, right? The after effect of, after you pay for a funeral and all of that. And additionally, the proper life insurance, right? Because unfortunately not all life insurance is made equal either. So really, the proper life insurance should also be something that provides living benefits to a person, proper coverage, right? And it also should be worked through somebody who is a financial advisor, right? A financial expert that can guide you through the second half of having life insurance, which is also investing and making sure that you're creating generational wealth for your family.
Right. So you're saying there's like several types of life insurance, indeed. I think a lot of people focus on the current one, right? Like, just in case I die, but there's also the other one of like, hey, I died. How am I what happens to my house?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Have you seen like both scenarios of like, and then you probably work with a lot of individuals, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe the difference between someone who has life insurance and someone who doesn't?
Absolutely, yeah. And unfortunately, it's been two very different extremes, right?
Right.
Even within our own family, we've seen it where, a specific family member had life insurance through our company, and the individual passed away. Their kids were okay for, an X amount of years, and you see that his children are, well taken care of. They've gone through college. One of them is actually a successful business owner. They had a home growing up, right? They had a fully paid for house when their dad passed away. Then we see the other extreme where, we have an individual, a client that unfortunately, was in the process of wanting to become a client. Unfortunately, didn't get to that point.
Really?
For him, his daughter, unfortunately, was not financially taken care of after he passed away. And that was really rough on his daughter. He was a single dad. All the horror stories that you hear out there, it unfortunately happened with him and his daughter. And super young, right? Left his daughter at 28 years old, and her bouncing around between families. And those are the two extremes, right? You want to make sure that you're leading your family in the right place by protecting your income with life insurance.
Yeah, and you have to plan everything out. And personally, when I got my first house, right, I was like excited and everything, but then I was like, oh man, like if I die, like I don't want to leave my family with this mortgage.
Exactly.
Right. So that's kind of when I reached out to you guys and I'm like, hey, like this just went on. And I feel like a lot of people do not really get that thought, right, about that. What advice would you give for someone who just bought their first home and needs guidance on processing their assets?
Yeah. So, when it comes to protecting your assets, there's a couple of things that you need to consider. Obviously, when we're younger, we don't see as much of an importance to life insurance because we maybe think we have something to work, right? And realistically, that's not always guaranteed or the appropriate coverage, especially if you just had a massive debt, right? Sometimes the biggest debt that somebody ends up accruing is their home mortgage. Protecting your assets with things like depending on the individual, right? Either a will is appropriate or a trust,
Right.
depending on different strategies. And we have an amazing partnership with lawyers that help our clients through that process as well. And, making sure you're touching base with your, who would be taking care of the asset if you did pass away, and making sure that you're starting to have those conversations with individuals, even if you're selling out, and it's still so important to have those conversations.
Yeah, what I appreciate about working with you guys and just having, life insurance and a financial planner is that you guys aren't going to solve it all but you guys are like the guidance and you guys route. So I know that if I have a question, I could just say, hey, this is going on. And like, oh, okay, well, have you thought of doing this, right? And that's so important to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, growing up myself, right? I grew up in a household where my parents are farm workers. I grew up working in the fields myself. And I remember going to college and not even knowing how to manage my credit cards or knowing nothing about life insurance or benefits through your job. And I think it's been so awesome to really be able to be that guidance for individuals that grew up like us, for sure.
And then how did you, for someone who comes from a, not a financial literate background, how did you get past through that? What were the first steps you took?
The first steps are really finding the right voices to listen to, right? So having amazing mentors that we've met in both life and in business, and then going through the process of getting our state and federal licenses to be able to give this advice to individuals really is what gave us all the education that we have today. But it's really been a lot of researching, a lot of staying up with the laws, staying up with education, and just trying to be the best we could possibly be for our clients.
I like how you said about, just reaching out and having those relationships. I think even in general, like, even as whoever your group of friends are, I think you should start having these conversations about financial literacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it makes such a huge difference. Some people really don't know anything or are shy, I guess a lot of our culture just doesn't like to talk about money.
Yes.
And we need to start talking about it because it's not a competition or anything, right? It's literally, which hits the fan. What are we going to do?
Yes, and I think that unfortunately, those that mentality is sometimes something that really keeps our culture back from really moving forward. So it has been exciting to be able to help individuals that were closed-minded at one point or another and now see the benefit of protecting their family and starting investing and things that people fear, unfortunately, because of whatever reason. So
yeah, so it's really not just like even not just a house. It could be a car or whatever it is, but you got to learn how to protect your asset.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. What advice would you give for someone who is looking to level up their financial literacy?
I would definitely say it's super important to, first of all, see the sources that you're taking advice from, right?
Yes.
Making sure that it's from individual. If it's from an individual, it has to be somebody who does have licenses and who has studied, financial literacy topics, whatever it is that you're looking for. Second of all, I think it's really important to try to make sure that the sources that you're reading are also reliable sources. I think that's really important because unfortunately, a lot of individuals will go online and just read the first thing that they see and go with that, and that's not always the best move. So I think the other thing is really just making sure that you're asking the right questions and be very vocal about what your goals are, what your financial literacy goal or your financial goals are, to making sure that you end up partnering with somebody who can guide you in the right way.
I like how you said look at the source because but that's not just it, right? I think look at the source, but also look at the date, because laws are always changing.
Yeah.
And not just that, but like, where is that source? Is it Washington State? Is it Oregon?
Yeah.
It's very nitty gritty.
Yeah. Especially things, unfortunately right now, obviously social media is an amazing tool for many different things, but sometimes not always the most reliable information. So it's definitely important for you to check your sources. Yeah.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, check your sources. I mean, you can. That's kind of how I found you, through Instagram, right? I just researched, and even then, like, approach people as an interview, right? Doesn't mean I'm gonna get life insurance with you, but I'm gonna ask the right questions.
Exactly, yeah. And for us, we never get offended. If somebody comes and asks us questions, but they see, the benefit of going somewhere else, that's okay. I just want to make sure that financial education is out in the community for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So, Antoine, I love this community that you're creating. I wish I would have had this when I was, way younger. So definitely, especially when we bought our first home.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys. We'll have Jose on, your husband, on the next episode. But we're also going to have your contact information below, so that I can reach you.
Absolutely. We're happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
I hope you share this episode with another homeowner, because you don't want them to be at a disadvantage. You want them to protect your legacy, because a home is a legacy. That is it for today's episode. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you learned something, and I hope it encouraged you to at least be proactive and reach out to an appropriate professional to handle your assets. Liz's information is going to be below in the description, so is mine, and just feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and please stay tuned for the next podcast episode.